Thanks for tuning in. I'm your host, Andrew Capel. Let's get started. All right, Ewing Gillaspy, we're in front of each other again. We were together in Tampa Bay, Florida, just a couple of months ago, and we recorded the #1 episode of How the Deal Was Done, buyer-seller joint episode. So welcome back to the new podcast, The Why, Who, and How.
Hey, man, thanks for having me back. You're one of those LinkedIn connections that turned into a friend in real life. And so, kudos to you for getting out there. Richard Harris, wherever he is out there, Richard Harris called me in January, did the same thing. And he said, hey, I've just been looking back at my LinkedIn connections and people I lost track of. You're one of those people. So I just gave you a call. That was it. That was the whole purpose of the call. So good on you for getting out there, man. It was really nice to see you and your new baby. I mean, the little guy, I think we even got him to giggle by the end of the breakfast.
He is he's rolling all over the place, and we'll be back in Florida. It's booming down there. So Ewing,
sure
how'd you get started, and what's your why?
Oh, my why. So when I was in the 3rd grade, I went to my first book fair, and I was the only kid in the class that didn't have enough money to buy a book. So the next year when they had the book fair, I knew in advance and I made sure that I had enough money, because when we got back that first year, I was the only one, the teacher let everyone read their new book. That's how I knew everybody had a book, is because the teachers gave us 30 minutes to read our new book. Yeah. And so I made sure that I could buy one. And I bought this. I bought the Guinness Book of World Records. It's the 1990 copy. And I was just deeply fascinated by this story of performance, these examples of performance and these feats and these, sometimes it's just the person that had the longest hair and they measured it. But sometimes it's the person that jumped the highest. And, that's not an accident in a lot of cases. So I was just motivated by that. And I realized early on in life that I was an underdog. It took a while to get old enough to realize that when you don't have enough money to buy a book in the 3rd grade, you're an underdog. And so I've always been drawn to underdog stories. I've always been drawn to underdog situations. When I coached a Little League baseball team, as a fatherless or as a coach that didn't have a son in the league, they just gave me the team that had no coach, which was the worst team. And I loved having the worst team with the least amount of baseball equipment and not the hot bats and not all the good gear and everything. We didn't even have enough baseballs to have a practice. And we finished second. The best team was the best team by a mile, but we challenged them to a tight 3-2 game for the league championship, and we lost. But they also elected me the all-star coach, for doing that. And that was a fun run. And so, when I think about business, I'm trying to help underdogs. And so in our recruiting business, maybe it's a B2B SaaS company that has a totally unknown brand and they need top talent and they need their opportunity to be able to be marketed in absence of a brand. We do that really well. So we market our opportunities anonymously so that candidates can look at the opportunity for what it is, not just the name of the company attached to it with a quick Glassdoor or G2 crowd check, right? As an example. In M&A, and I'll get to why I even started in M&A here in a minute. In M&A, I help sellers that are often selling their only business for the first time and have never sold a business. Running a roofing company or a plumbing company or an HVAC company or running a hospital, my current pursuit. These are not the same kind of tasks at all as selling a company. And so what I found in competing against other firms is that they come in, they tell you what you're worth, they spend a lot of energy on processing you into this package, and they charge you for that. And then you have to pay attorney fees to negotiate what's called a LOI or letter of intent. And at that point, you have a real process. At that point, you have what we would call a qualified opportunity in enterprise sales. So what I realized is if I am able to do all of that pre-work for them, if I partner with an attorney to be part of the team rather than billing fees, that I can get sellers to an LOI for no money to them. Now, what does that do for buyers? For buyers, that means they're looking at an opportunity that has their act together. And a lot of times the buyers can't buy a really good target because they're just not sophisticated enough to go through the process, or they fear they're not worth what they will be next year, or they don't know what they're worth. And so they won't even know if an offer's good or not. And so what I do is create a mini market for a select group of buyers and a select group of sellers. Because we use AI really, really sophisticated and really well, I can qualify buyers into groups and I can qualify sellers into groups where many of them want each other. And when you stack it like that, when many on the buying team want many of the sellers and many of the sellers would fit well with the buyers, now everyone gets what they need past LOI, because here's what happens. Let's say a private equity firm calls a roofing company and they engage. They get about 2, 3, 4 months into it. Now the seller realizes they need to hire a sell side broker. Now here comes the sell side broker, and for the buyer, the process kind of starts over a little bit, and that's one example. And that mid-market brokerage firm is essentially going to tell them that, hey, your company's worth X because we checked our database and we've run these projects before and we know that and we have history. And that's kind of how it is. A very transactional approach, like a realtor saying, hey, that house in this zip code with that many square footage is just worth X. You're like, I put a solar roof on it and I have a rock concert studio in my garage. Yeah, but people just buy by the square foot, right? And that transactional, there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that realtor. They'll sell your house, but they're not going to sell your house as a package of everything you've really done. And so this is the enterprise sales work coming into that process to try to change that, shape that for what I consider the underdog, which is the seller. So I only take fees from sellers. I don't take fees from buyers, but when people meet me, they often think I'm working for the buyer. So if that makes any sense.
Yeah, it's a marketplace. You're matching up the sellers and the buyers, and you're running it through that consultative approach. So how did you connect the dots, or how did you get? So it sounds like you were in sales. Now you have a recruitment business. Now you're in the M&A space as well. How did you transition from there? And I know from past conversations, you had some big company experience. If you want to kind of talk about some of those
Sure.
trends and patterns.
I have been a part of 0 to 1 5 times, either for a company that had zero revenue or for a product that had zero revenue, from startups as small as a metaverse company where I was employee number 10 or 11, to some of my own things like the recruiting firm I run now. I started with the co-founder 10 years ago. I just now sort of took it back over recently, and all the way up to IBM. And at IBM in 2018, I was the first guy in the door on the original team that sold Watson AI to HR buyers at companies as big as American Express. Before ChatGPT had a login, before it was even called ChatGPT, when OpenAI was a nonprofit, and Elon was still happy about his $50 million that he gave him. Okay. So before Grok, before Anthropic, before all of them, IBM was really a pioneer in the space. And that taught me a lot about AI, the limitations, how the models were built. I was deeply fascinated. That's why I took the job. But along the course of that journey, I had a mentor to ask me a question one day. And he said, you sound like you have big dreams and you want to help a lot of people. How many opportunities in your world right now, in your world of business, could make you $10 million if something great happened? And I said, 0. He's like, okay, well, you're not going to make that. How many opportunities, if something great happened, could you make $1 million? And I said, maybe 1. And he's like, what would have to happen? Something would have to sell for, hundreds of millions of dollars. Okay. And he's like, okay. And how many hours a week do you work on that? 35. Okay. Well, so you got all your eggs in that basket. How many opportunities can make you 100,000? And I said about 3. And then I went through that. And then he said, now how many 10,000? And I had like 7. He goes, there's the problem. He's like, you're working on 7 opportunities that can only make you 10 grand. You're never going to put one in the pipeline bigger than that because A, you're not working on it. And B, you're trying to solve everything. And so I left that and I just thought to myself, wow, how simple is that to think that I have no opportunity in my life that could be, 8 figures. So the recruiting business will never make $10 million on a single transaction. It'll never make $1 million on a single transaction. But it makes transactions that are very similar to selling software for $100,000 type of a price point on a average Silicon Valley commission plan. Okay, so it makes the same kind of cash like selling enterprise software, which is primarily my background. And I performed that. I was in that role. I know that role like the back of my hand.
Yeah.
So that's a really good fit from the cash side. The private equity, the M&A work, there is no such thing as a six-figure deal. All deals are seven figures, all of them. And so that is a profound switch in energy. And after I knocked one down and proved to myself that it was real, then I shifted all my energy towards this. And I'm able to hire friends. I'm able to hire people I've worked with before. The most rewarding thing is helping others monetize their own network. To give an example, I hired a former stand-up comedian, 19 years. He's been on Curb Your Enthusiasm. He's been on one of the talk shows. I forget the name, not the Tonight Show, not one quite that big, one level down. I'll have to get it for you after. Maybe we'll put it in the notes. But super talented guy. Can't even set up a Zoom call. Can't even set up a Zoom call, right? His whole life ran it on his phone. But he was also a caddy. And he caddied at Riviera Country Club, one of the most exclusive places in LA, and some other place in the Northeast where he's from. And his Rolodex of people that want to buy and sell companies is unbelievable. He's caddied for Al Pacino. He's caddied for Mark Wahlberg. He's caddied for MLB All-Stars. And these are folks that just remember him because he's funny, he's charming,
Personable.
he's likable,
Yeah.
he's memorable. He has all crazy amount of skill that we could never teach our enterprise sellers. Some of them have it. You've met them.
Yeah.
And people like to buy from. People like to do business with people they like. Who was it that said, all other things being equal, we'll choose to do business with a friend?
Yeah.
And even if the non-friend's value prop is 10, 15, 20, we'll still choose the friend until it's 50% worse.
Yeah.
Right. And I truly believe that. And I see the world behaving in that way over and over. So a lot of what I think about is like, what's the human psychology that's repeatable, that you don't have to manipulate, that you don't have to negotiate, that you don't have to work around? Well, in the case of private equity firms, they raise big funds, they got to spend it. And so I look for big funds raised, like, for example, in hospitals, there's billions of dollars sitting on ice. It's really hard to figure out which ones are for sale, how to approach them, and how to get a process started. And these big, huge funds, I just talked to one the other day, $500 million has been sitting on ice for 18 months. And they have no LOIs issued. And so, being able to hire someone like that and let that person now have, guess what he has? He has a 6 and a 7-figure opportunity in his pipeline. And he had to quit comedy because he couldn't make enough money doing comedy. And now those skills are now being repurposed, and he's an underdog, and he's a brand new dad. And I just love being able to put someone like that in play, right in line with what my mentor said for their life. And that's what this does ultimately, is it because you can't do everything yourself.
Yeah.
So I pay double the market rate for lead finder fees. I paid more than 7 figures in lead finder fees last year. And we're on track to do more this year. So it's great being in this market. It is full of risk and full of wasting your time. If that's how if you look at the world like a trained force management, B2B, sales profession, you'd be qualifying everything out of my pipeline. You'd qualify all of it out. And that's because I'm not a traditional M&A broker. When I get a hold of a relationship, my job is to maximize that relationship's potential for them. My fee is automatically calculated. It's the same as everyone else's. I'm maximizing that person's outcome because that's serving the underdog. And it's so fun to do that. I think that's really it, is that mentor changed my life. He set me on a completely different path. It took a coach about 7 sessions to get me to quit IBM, because I was like entrenched in that, and I was really proud of the work we were doing. We did some amazingly just different things. And
Yeah.
you have a whole episode about it. So
Yeah,
I'll
yeah,
let people
yeah.
go listen.
We'll link
Go.
the IBM program that you stood up and how the
Yeah,
deal was done on the buyer side. You were the buyer
I was
going
the
through a
buyer.
7-figure transaction. So I just I look at your background as just such diverse experiences outside the box, and yeah, just the opportunity to collaborate with you and a pattern interrupt, because people like to hang out with people they know, like, and trust. So I've had
That's
that
right.
experience with you, and it's an exciting time ahead for you. So it's been great to catch up, Ewing.
Yeah,
Where would we point people who are interested in following along on your journey?
sure. It's Ingram.nexus. So ENGRAM.NEXUS. That's our main website. Or if you are in B2B and you're looking for your next talented sales professional, revsup.com. REVSUP.com. That's it. Those two, man.
Cool.
That's
And
what we're up
we'll
to.
put this out there and put your LinkedIn in the show notes too. Hey, Ewing, and as we wrap up here, bonus question. Using the principles that you have of the 6, 7, 8-figure opportunities, are you doing anything outside of business to navigate this portfolio of bets you have?
I am. In fact, something really special materialized. I went to an Ole Miss football game. I went to Ole Miss. They played Oklahoma. That's where I grew up. So it's like Oklahoma, Ole Miss, like first time in my lifetime they're in the same stadium. My parents drove their RV over from Oklahoma, and my old fraternity alumni advisor was there. Some of my best friends and fraternity brothers were there. And it just kind of spur of the moment came up, and the conversations happened rapidly. And we are starting a sales class next year, next summer. There will be the first sales elective in the Ole Miss Business School, where you get course credit. It feels like an internship. You do real business development work for real companies, and the companies pay the students directly, not through the school, for what they book and achieve. So we're giving students the ability, all the tools I use for all of my businesses are right there on the screen, set up, configured nicely for these students to help these Ole Miss business owner alums grow their businesses and get course credit, but make it real. And so a couple of things the school's working on. They're working on improving their relationships with alum business owners. And right now they're judging case competitions, and they're doing the kind of usual things you might expect. Like they come to final exam and maybe there's a class and, pitch me this deal. And it's not a real deal. It's fake. It's hard to learn in a fake environment.
Yeah.
So look, the quarterback, Jackson Dart, last year made $1.3 million throwing a football. So the cat's already out of the bag. We can, the idea, the concept of paying students for doing sales work, guess what? The athletics open that door for us, and we are running through it. So next summer, I hope to do another episode with you and tell you about the first group of students that came in, got on the phone, and changed their life and put 6-figure opportunities in their basket as well.
That is, that's so you're finding more underdogs. There's never been a sales program there, and it's not a feeder school for sales opportunities. So you're going to open up that other avenue. They
do have a sales program, but none of the teaching is real.
Okay.
And it's about to be. So when we put a list in front of a student and they're calling on behalf of a real business, all of a sudden the learning accelerates because we're in the real world.
Can't wait, and we'll have you on 2027 to talk about it.
All right, sounds great, man.
Thanks, Ewing.
Thanks.
Thanks for checking out the show. Please follow along on YouTube, LinkedIn, and wherever you get your podcasts.